Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something I find absolutely fascinating, a breakdown of what I like to call the architecture of peace. We're going to deconstruct a highly specific, super high-retention audio format. Specifically, we're looking at an emotionally restorative sleep script designed in the style of the Gentle Bible. If you've ever wondered how spoken word and audio pacing can literally be engineered to systematically calm the human mind and create a sanctuary of rest, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to look at the precise mechanics of how this source text uses empathy, structure, and pacing to take a weary mind from daily chaos straight into deep sleep.
Just listen to this. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. In the source material, this isn't just text floating on its own. It's paired with a really soft, minimalist background. Think of a starry night sky, maybe a forest at dusk, or a slow-moving candle flame. And that's not just a nice aesthetic choice, it's the foundation of the entire experience. It establishes this immediate baseline expectation of safety before the narrator even speaks a single word. Today, we're going to see exactly how this script actively constructs that feeling of absolute security from the very first second.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Designing a Divine Sanctuary.
Unlike most content out there that's trying to hype you up and grab your attention, a sleep script's hook has to do the exact opposite. It has to create an immediate sense of relief. And it does this through a really carefully crafted three-step emotional journey. Step 1 is acknowledging the weight of the world. The script speaks directly to the listener with profound empathy, validating their exhaustion, saying things like, if the shadows of the night feel a bit too long, or if you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, that's okay. Step 2 is removing fear. The narrator explicitly tells the listener, you don't have to be afraid tonight. You are safe here. And finally, Step 3, stepping into divine protection. It invites you to close your eyes and step into a sanctuary, surrounded by a shield of favor. It's a highly compassionate, totally calculated progression that moves the viewer from carrying heavy burdens to actively resting under a protective layer.
Moving right along to Section 2, Building a Quiet Community.
Now, you'd probably assume a sleep script is basically a one-way street, right? Just a narrator broadcasting soothing words into the void for an isolated listener. But interestingly, sleep psychology shows that feelings of isolation can actually trigger hyperarousal and make insomnia way worse. So to combat this, the source material asks a surprising question right before the stillness begins. Where are you watching from tonight? It completely breaks the fourth wall, asking viewers to share their location or a prayer request. And this isn't just a cheap trick to drive engagement. It's a brilliant structural choice to build what the script intentionally calls a quiet community. It reminds the weary listener that they aren't alone in the dark. They are resting alongside thousands of others seeking the exact same peace.
Right after that connection is made, the script shifts into a highly targeted opening prayer. We're not talking about generic blessings here. It focuses sharply on the home and the family. It specifically asks to quiet anxious thoughts, guard doors, watch over families, and remind listeners that his presence is a fortress. By hitting these deeply relatable, hyper-specific anxieties, the script systematically dismantles the viewer's daily worries. Think of it like a targeted security system for the mind. It's locking the metaphorical doors of the house so the listener can finally grant themselves permission to just completely let go.
Which brings us to Section 3, the promise of Psalm 91.
This is the core textual foundation of the entire script, and it gives us some really crucial insight into why this specific text is chosen as the ultimate balm for a weary soul. It isn't just reciting a nice poem. It frames the upcoming scripture as an absolute, unbreakable promise. The script actually defines refuge and fortress as a spiritual place of safety where the noise and chaos of the outside world simply cannot reach you. It paints this stark, beautiful contrast. On one side, you've got the chaotic, noisy world that has just exhausted the listener all day long. And on the other side, perfect protection, a place where you are fully seen and perfectly safe. The script goes out of its way to ensure the listener knows these words are a literal shelter they can hide inside.
Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. When the script moves into this first actual reading of the scripture, the specific instructions in the source text note that it should be read extremely slowly, pausing for breath after each and every verse. By slowing down the delivery of these majestic words, it actively invites the viewer to imagine themselves physically resting under that divine shadow. The pacing of the speaker's voice is literally designed to mirror and guide the slowing heart rate of someone drifting closer and closer to sleep.
Let's look at Section 4,
meditation through repetition.
This right here is the mechanical core of the whole audio architecture. It's no longer just about what is being said, but exactly how it's being delivered. A very purposeful shift happens. The first scripture reading is extremely slow, pausing deliberately for breath. But the second reading, which is a repetition of the exact same text from Psalm 91, is delivered as a near whisper. It's read even more slowly than the first time, allowing the spoken words to overlap with soft background sounds. The script is purposefully slowing down time. By repeating that familiar text at a fading volume, the conscious mind doesn't have to do any work to process new information. The brain can just stop analyzing and get lulled by a gentle, familiar rhythm.
But tucked right between those two readings is a crucial transition. The script calls it the meditative bridge. It reads, "God is watching over you while you sleep. Let these promises wash over you like still waters." Delivered in a near whisper, this brief intermission does something absolutely vital. It gives the viewer explicit permission to stop trying to solve their problems. The script is essentially saying, you don't have to figure anything out tonight. It acts as a mental release valve, telling the listener to just breathe and let the repetitive words do all the heavy lifting.
And that brings us to Section 5, Final Rest, in Psalm 121.
At this stage in the architecture, the pacing reaches its absolute slowest. The goal isn't to teach or engage anymore. It is purely to gently carry the listener completely over the threshold into deep sleep, transitioning from active protection to enduring vigilance. The narrator brings in these final words at the softest possible volume. "I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth." This text serves as the ultimate closing reassurance. The source material highlights that he who watches over you will not slumber. So the crucial takeaway is this: because the Lord will not slumber, the viewer finally can. The night watch has been formally handed over, and the listener is finally safe to let go.
Which leads us to the incredibly clever audio engineering of the final phase. The voiceover simply disappears entirely, executing this really slow audio fade-out, leaving 10+ minutes of soft wind through trees and gentle ambient pads. The spoken words have done their job, slowly tapering off until absolutely nothing but the atmosphere remains. It leaves this lingering, memorable sense of peace that actually protects the sleeper from sudden silence or any jarring audio transitions that might accidentally wake them back up.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. How can you apply this architecture of peace to calm your own chaotic days? Even if you aren't out there writing a sleep script yourself, the mechanics we've deconstructed here, starting with deep empathy, acknowledging the weight of the day, building a sense of community to combat that isolation, and using deliberate repetition to slow down racing thoughts, these are incredibly powerful tools. Whether you just need to decompress after a long day of work, or you're trying to find a moment of quiet in a super noisy world, how can you consciously build your own sanctuary of rest tonight? Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating framework with me, and I will catch you in the next explainer.